I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on the Spotlight Network, we're diving into Kerry Blaser's transformative memoir. It is called My Inner Heroine, Exploring Maternal Pain. This powerful book shares her journey of healing childhood trauma, discovering shamanic gifts, and transforming emotional pain into self-love and enlightenment. If you're seeking inspiration for your own self-reflection and healing, this is a book you won't want to miss. This is a conversation you won't want to miss. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today on Spotlight. We thank the team at Atticus Publishing for helping us put her in the spotlight today. And we ask viewers like you to support authors like her by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing her amazing book. The links are below this interview. Kerry, great to see you here today on Spotlight. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about my book.
Well, I'm glad to have you on the show, no doubt. It's a great book. Talk to us a little bit about what it means to explore and embrace your shadow.
Oh, the shadow. The shadow is how I know it is that it's our emotional pain. It's the parts of ourselves that we don't acknowledge, that we don't love. And so when I have to find more self-belief and turn my emotional wounds into wisdom, I
Mhm.
dive into my shadow. And so like my book is about my journey started about 6 years ago. I had a suicide attempt. Luckily, I survived. And then that catapulted my healing. And I needed to find self-belief that I wanted to live, that I wanted to love myself. And the more that I believed in myself and the more that I didn't listen to my fears and insecurities, the more power and the more successful I was. And I realized over time that I was finding the reserves of self-belief and self-love and self-confidence in my shadow, in my wounds. So I had
Mm.
to dive into my wounds to find the wisdom. So one example is about 3 years ago, I was doing some emotional work on myself, and I realized that I had a wound in my heart to fear all men from my childhood because I had a very traumatic childhood. And I didn't know it was in there. And I had a lot of anxiety my whole life. But once I identified it, I turned it into wisdom that men protect me. Sure,
Mhm.
some men are scary, but most men would protect me. And the next day, I went to visit my older daughter at her market, and she immediately noticed how much less anxiety I had, that I was walking around the market. I was like a whole other person
Yeah.
just because I identified a wound and I released it and I forgave myself for holding on to that.
Yeah. Very, very interesting. It's a great example. It's almost like stranger danger with children. You teach your children that strangers are bad. Well, that's a catch-22 because in a crisis, strangers are the people who are going to help them. So, there
Right.
are bad strangers, but most strangers are good. The same thing with men and same thing with all people in general, no doubt.
Yeah.
You were in both physical pain and emotional pain. Tell us a
Yeah.
little bit about your journey.
So when I was about 15, my lower back started hurting. And my childhood had some sexual abuse and some other abuse against my femininity. And as women, our value is in our hips, right? Is in our
Mhm.
reproductive value. So a lot of women have a lot of hip pain. That's why you see a lot of exercises, somatic exercises, exercise your hips and you'll cry. So when you move that area, your pain starts to come out. So then you start to cry. But that's where our value is. So I developed lower back pain. And what I didn't understand is that it came from my emotional pain. It was there to remind me of my emotional wounds.
Mhm.
And so it was communicating to me for what, 35 years, but I didn't understand the communication because I didn't understand how to heal my emotional pain. So about 6 months before it actually released, primarily, I finally understood that that is emotional pain.
Mhm.
And it communicates to me and it communicates to other people. Like I've had that lower back pain come back, like with the first firefighter, the fire academy instructor that I knew, to communicate to him how much his actions were hurting me. Because, he's a firefighter. He understands physical pain. He's working through his emotional challenges. Men understand physical pain. And so
Mhm.
that's the way my body found to communicate with him. And so I think one thing that I've learned and is well supported by a scientific field called epigenetics,
Mhm.
it shows us that our thoughts, our feelings, our consciousness controls our physiology.
Mhm.
So my sacral chakra, which is like, in my lower back, was kind of radiating hurt, pain, pain, in
Mm.
the hopes of getting my attention. And so, but that field of epigenetics has done a lot of groundbreaking work to show us that when we have physical ailments, when we have cancer, they have a lot of studies now showing that cancer is a result of emotional pain. It's a result of putting other people before ourselves, people pleasing, of
Yeah.
not taking care of ourselves. And all that is a result of childhood trauma, of not learning proper self-care,
Yeah.
not learning appropriate boundaries, not learning when to say no.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
absolutely. Emotional pain can manifest itself in physical pain, certainly demonstrated, of course, with what they call broken heart syndrome. Somebody's
Mm,
spouse dies, they're brokenhearted about it. A short while later, they die too.
mm,
So what we feel up here and what we feel in here manifests itself throughout the body, no doubt. For you, healing your childhood trauma led to the discovery of your shamanic gifts. Tell us a
yeah.
little bit about that part of your story.
So I've always been highly intuitive, but as a child, my intuitive gifts were punished. My mom was an alcoholic, and my parents got divorced when I was 5. I lived in a very affluent town in Southern California, in Westlake Village. Um, and so a divorce in 1975, that wasn't typical, but that was my life, and I grew up in an apartment, right?
Mm.
So when I would point out my mom's challenges, I would get in trouble. So I shut down my intuitive gifts. Um, and then when my mom passed away on my 45th birthday, I knew intuitively it was time to heal my childhood trauma and accept my psychic gifts. And that was when I was 45. So I
Mm.
spent the next 4 years seeing healers and developing my shamanic gifts. But then life took a turn
Mm.
and I attempted suicide. And that's when my shamanic gifts really came out. It was like, okay, I lived. I'm
Mm.
staying here. It's like my soul went out there, got Carrie 2.0, brought it back. It's like I am not having this anymore. I am better than this. I need to
Mm.
love myself more than this. So even in like the psych ward, my shamanic gifts, my like psychic shamanic gifts came out. This young woman who was in the room with me, she's 18 years old, and she had an eating disorder, just like my youngest daughter. And that was kind of a trigger for my suicide attempt.
Mm.
And we had that in common. And I was in the room, but she was in another room, and her mom came through to me and asked me to give her a message. And one of the part of the message was the nickname we had never discussed
Mhm.
when she was a child, because her mom passed away when she was 11.
Wow.
So I went and gave her the message and then told her the nickname. She, she just freaked
Yeah.
out. And I freaked out because like the first time I knowingly did it. And then that night when we were sleeping, I didn't sleep well in the psych ward, a lot of, challenging energy there.
Yeah.
um, Her mom came through again and asked me to teach her how to interact with her daughter in a healthy way. And I explained that as long as the intent comes from love, then your daughter will feel your presence. And then I went to sleep and I woke up. She woke up hungry with hunger cues. So this is what happens with an eating disorder. When you stop feeding the body starves. And when the body's starving, you don't get hunger cues. The hunger cues just
Mhm.
shut off. And so oftentimes, someone with a serious eating disorder will never get them back throughout their whole life.
Wow.
That she woke up with hunger cues, ate a huge breakfast. I was like, okay, I think I might have something here. I
Awesome.
I'm a healer. And so it just like my soul was just on fire. And I stood up for myself in that psych ward and was like one self-belief after another self-belief. And it's like a snowball effect where I just started believing in myself. I can do this and I can do this and I can do this. And so the more I believed in myself, the more I kind of unearthed my shamanic gifts out of my shadow because like,
Mm.
okay, there's that wound, get that wisdom out, get that wisdom out. And I need that. I just got excited about the healing process for the first time. And I was just, yeah, elated.
Amazing. And you also found reason to live. I mean, you were at a
Yes,
very dark point where you're taking your own life or attempting to take your own life. And then you realized, there's more to this life. And it's not just
yes.
about you, it's about helping others. You have gifts to share, and you helped turn that girl's life around by giving her a wonderful message from her mother. It's an absolutely beautiful story. What do you hope readers take away from your book?
Oh, well, I hope they're inspired to process their emotional pain. I
Mm.
hope they're inspired to be grateful for their emotional pain. There's one quote I often see on spiritual like Instagram channels. It says, even the box of darkness he left me with was a gift,
Mm.
because all those wounds have wisdom stored in there. And that's what I found out on my own. Like, no one told me that. No one told me
Yeah.
that. Like, I have all this wisdom inside of me. Like, I have a master's degree in East Asian religious studies.
Mhm.
I was thinking about getting a PhD and focusing on Buddhist nuns to get their wisdom. Now, no one told me the wisdom they have in their hearts was also in my heart. It's in all of our souls. It's like, universal truths, universal wisdom, universal knowledge, like the periodic table. That's universal knowledge.
Yeah.
That's laws of the universe. So that was just like, super exciting for me to
Yeah.
to figure. Yeah.
Absolutely. What advice would you give to someone beginning their own journey of healing?
So first, I would acknowledge that you have pain. Acknowledge that everyone has pain. That pain is there to teach you. Be grateful for the pain. So the system that I developed, I call appreciate, learn, forgive, is first you start with gratitude. Why? Because the pain in life is a gift. We come here, souls having a human experience
Mhm.
to see ourselves, experience ourselves, the good, the bad, and the ugly, all of it. Just because we cross over to heaven doesn't mean all of our pain is gone. We come back and start around where we left off and we keep working. And then we come back and we keep working. And that's how we, level
Yeah.
up, so to speak. So start with gratitude, find a gratitude practice. Be grateful for your pain. And one thing that I've seen in myself and my children have gone to therapy is that they would say, well, I'm good in spite of my childhood. And I'm like, oh, hang on a second. I would ask them, well, why did you do that? Well, in childhood. Yeah. And why did you do that? Well, in childhood. Yeah. And why did you do that? In childhood. That's right. So the
Mm.
challenges you had in childhood gave you a life and gave you opportunities to grow. Hardships are opportunities. And that's something I think that is lost on a lot of us. So if you're grateful for your hardships, you're grateful for your challenges, that immediately grounds you in your body, balances your hormones, releases your anxiety, it opens your heart and your, heart with the
Yeah.
shadow together. So the next step is self-reflect, is learn your lesson. Open and listen to yourself. Be willing to acknowledge, oh, wow, I fear all men. That's not right. What's
Mhm.
right? Oh, men protect me. Okay, let that be what resonates inside of me. And then forgiveness naturally follows. And that's the process I developed, I kind of saw I was using to kill parts of my ego. So I really hope, I guess one main thing is people take away is that they're grateful for their challenges in life, because that is how you become a better person. That's how you believe it. That's your opportunity
Yeah.
for self-belief and self-confidence. Those are all opportunities. Like a lot of people aren't having kids right now. Well,
Mm.
that's too hard. Well, that's your opportunity for growth, girlfriend.
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly.
And so, yeah, I
Yeah,
would say
that's your
that.
opportunity to level up, as you said, which is great
Yeah,
advice
yeah.
indeed. So tell me about Andrew Tate and your dealings with him.
Okay, so I in June of 2022, it was after the first hero came through. And I call them my heroes because they all helped me see myself and see my emotional pain so I could level up. So in my mind, they're my heroes. So that relationship ended. And then my intuition guided me to DM Justin Waller. And Justin Waller is Andrew Tate's best friend.
Mhm.
And that was 2 months before Andrew was canceled on social media in 2022, that August, had his payment processing center, canceled.
Mhm.
And a couple months later, he was put in solitary confinement. So I always thought, I seem to be working like in lockstep with someone, but I
Yeah.
don't know who that is, right? So, and later on, I saw an interview. Well, the powers that be locked me up, but he couldn't say, well, who that was. Well, I kind of wondered, well, who might that be? Okay, well, I seem to be working with them, but I'm here to help. So Justin got right back to me with a voice message, and I'm 16 years older than him, so I'm like, okay, I'm just going to go with the flow because my
Mhm.
intuition tells me what to do, and then I find out why later. Where men, I think, know why, so they can make decisions, and then they decide what to do. So men
Mhm.
and women being opposite like that. So okay, DM him and see what happened. Okay, did it. We DM some for a couple months, but kind of slowly opened his heart to me. So 2 weeks after Andrew was canceled on social media, I reached out and gave him emotional support.
Mhm.
And And so he he got right back to me, and then I DM'd him some more, and his heart opened to me. And so that is, as a shaman, that's what I need. Let me see into your heart. Let me see into your emotional pain. Let me help you get more balanced. And so I saw into his heart, and Andrew's pain was in there. So I woke up the next morning, and this doesn't happen very often, but I'll see a soul, like kind of the outline. And I saw Andrew's soul just hanging out, and he was having a hard time, like,
Mm.
a hard time. And so slowly my intuition showed me how to interact with him. And the next day I had about a 2 minute dialogue with him. It was kind of like a hardcore interrogation session where I asked him questions such as, so he could self-reflect, why was it necessary for you personally to stomp around the globe screaming I'm a man when you're the four-time UFC world champion?
Right.
What wound are you working from? I asked him, why was it necessary for the universe, the soul's your soul too, to turn up the volume on your healing message so loudly that you needed to be canceled on social media and got your payment processing center taken away?
Right.
Who emasculated you as a child? And they said, okay, I'll just tell you. His soul
Wow.
sat on the couch, and the pain came out of his, like the root, that's maternal pain, because it was maternal pain. I was helping the men with maternal pain, and they were helping me with paternal pain or
Mm.
masculine pain. And then all that energy came towards me, and I sent it to heaven, and then I fell asleep for 4 hours because it was exhausting. Like, he's a
Yeah.
big energy, right?
Yep.
And then when he was placed in solid, I already had an affinity for him, and I helped Justin about another month. And then I started interacting with the first firefighter at yoga. But that fall, he was placed in solitary confinement. So every day I would talk to him, talk to his soul, and encourage him to self-reflect, which I know there's a video that said he did. And so here's the interesting part. So he came into my life, and I helped him, and I learned so much from him. It's in the book. Like, he showed me how capable of a healer I am, because one of the
Mm.
other men taught me that a man will open his heart to a woman when her capacity for love is greater than his capacity for brute strength.
Mm.
So if I use that analogy with Andrew Tate, my capacity for compassion and healing as a healer, as a shaman, is greater than his capacity for brute strength as a fighter, as a four-time UFC world champion. I'm like, oh, I think I can help some people. Like, that
Absolutely.
really helped me a lot when I saw that. So anyway, I'm going along, and I meet the first firefighter and then the second firefighter. And last March, I experienced enlightenment. One thing I'd like people to know is enlightenment is an emotion and attainable. Turn your
Hmm.
wounds into wisdom, and you'll get there. And then during the enlightenment, a man from my childhood, like high school, came through, and I was shocked. I'm like, Jason, like what?
Hmm.
Weird, right?
Yeah.
So, okay. And then it kind of ended. Well, anyway, a week after I published the book, I was intuitively guided to reach out to Jason for the first time in 40 years. I hadn't seen him since high school. Didn't know
Mm.
his last name, didn't remember his last name, had no idea what he did, nothing.
Mm.
So I find his last name in my yearbook. I look him on my Facebook. I'm like, oh, head of security at GoDaddy? What's GoDaddy? Like,
Mm.
I don't know. Okay, whatever.
Mm.
I reach out. He doesn't respond back, but his soul opened to me immediately. And for the next 7 weeks, it was really intense healing, that, and a lot of fears that I faced. Like, it was intense. And then at the end of that, when that kind of ended on Christmas Eve, I did a post on Instagram, and I was finally able to kind of communicate my emotions. I apologized because I wasn't able to even talk to him when I was 14. He was 16. This wall of
Wow.
fear would come up, and was like, oh, shoot, like a runaway. He was like ASB president, amazing looking, varsity sports, like, the dream guy, right?
Mm.
Okay. Well, it turns out he's the head of global safety, security, and resilience at GoDaddy, which is an internet company. And he has
Hmm.
an extensive 20 plus year career in the FBI on counterterrorism, global security, interrogation, because there was a masculine soul helping me with those questions with Andrew. And so my question is, who has the power to kick someone off social media, the internet,
Mm.
you know, debank him, take away his payment processing center, and throw him in solitary confinement? Does Jason have the power to do that? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and it finally made sense. Like, Jason coming back into my life in his, extremely accomplished life. It's like, well,
Mm.
that's why the firefighters.
Yeah.
That's why, Justin and Andrew, like, putting Jason and Andrew in the same, I'm the commandant. That's an interesting connection.
Yeah.
So, I haven't heard back from him, but that's okay because I healed and I'm going to add another part of the book. I'm writing a second edition now because now my enlightenment makes a lot more sense.
Mm.
So the what I was shown in my enlightenment is that I didn't have, due to my perception of God creating and orchestrating life and creation being feminine, I attributed way too much to the masculine and didn't give enough value and credit to the feminine. And that was in me. So I had to change that. And I also wanted to understand masculine and feminine dynamic. So after I reached out to Jason on the same time, like the day before I reached out, all this pair bond like intuitive guidance came through me and I put it on my Instagram channel. And then I reached out, it was the day before the election. Then the election, the first time I ever voted Republican in my whole life, because now I'm healthy in my femininity. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
I like the firefighter. Oh, I like the protecting me. Oh, this is good. Like, whole other story.
Yeah.
And then some wisdom came through because I started asking him, okay, well, pair bond, like what's a pair bond and how does that work? And I asked the universe, I said, well, how are souls formed? Like, okay, you're not ready for that wisdom. I say, okay,
Mm.
well, how is the masculine and feminine soul formed? And and I was told this that originally we were all souls, we were all connected, but then we wanted to experience and see ourselves. So then we needed a mirror. Well, the best mirror is our opposite, is our reflection,
Mhm.
right? So then that was need to create the feminine and the masculine. So this is what happened. So the intent, this is how important intent is in life. The intent to create the masculine soul creates the feminine soul. And the feminine soul tears out half of her heart chakra to create the masculine soul. I think, a lot of people question, is there a soulmate out there? Is there, my other half out there? Because, when men have like their wife and she's like the light of their life, and that's like she's source energy, she created children, like she's the light, right?
Mhm.
And so this is what I was shown, and this really helped me understand my favorite piece of wisdom. It's a Cherokee proverb. It said, "A woman's highest." I'm gonna cry. Okay, a woman's highest calling is to connect a man to his soul so he can connect to source energy. A man's highest calling is to protect the woman so she can walk the earth unharmed. During those 7 weeks with Jason, I kept hearing, you can go anywhere you're protected. You can go anywhere you're protected. Anywhere you're protected. And I haven't seen him. Is he my masculine soul? I think that there's a strong probability. Obviously, I
Mm.
don't have evidence. I don't have a metric. Um, but that wisdom came to me when I was connected to him, and the amount of emotion that came out of me in
Mm.
November and December was like none other. Like all these other
Amazing.
men, like don't even talk to me.
Amazing. It's an
Weird.
amazing story. There's more in the book. I'm glad you left
Yeah.
us with that beautiful quote at the end.
Yeah.
I think it brings things full circle in our conversation today. Folks at home, the name of the book is My Inner Heroine, Exploring Maternal Pain. It is a powerful book, and in it, the author shares her journey of healing childhood trauma, discovering shamanic gifts, and transforming emotional pain into self-love and enlightenment. Kerry, thank you so much for joining me here today on Spotlight.
Thank you.
I appreciate your time. For the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time on Spotlight.